Have you ever wanted to play World of Warcraft but build your own unique class? Have you ever wanted to have different challenges and trials that make the leveling process that much more engaging? Then you should probably pay attention to Ascension WoW. Ascension WoW is a private WoW server, also known as classless World of Warcraft. You start out as a simple hero, a fresh plate that is able to change and create any unique build that comes to your mind to test out in Azeroth. Whereas retail WoW has the standard class archetypes that we all know and love, Ascension looks to take the guardrails off and let your creative buildcraft fly. Ascension was originally launched in 2016, the same year that retail launched their expansion Legion. Now, Ascension has been run by an extremely dedicated group of indie developers that have kept it up and fleshed it out on the idea of classless World of Warcraft. I know I, for one, was like super duper skeptical about the idea of Project Ascension and the creation of it, because I was certain that Blizzard would have like immediately jumped on it, dismantling the project and gotten rid of it. However, closing in on nearly 10 years of uptime, it seems that Blizzard does not care to remove it. Actually, from what I've been able to gather online, and I may be wrong on this, but over the past years, Blizzard has been dealing with various lawsuits and issues, as well as not being in the best light as far as public opinion. So it'd probably have bad optics of doubling down and removing a small private server that, from what I can tell, is doing no harm. I mean, other reasons that Ascension could be up and running still is that Blizzard would have to locate where the servers are, because they are probably not US based, and then they would have to spend quite a large amount of money to shut down a smaller server, so fiscally it may not even be worth it. I've also seen some talks that it's like it doesn't fall under fair use, which I can't necessarily believe, because I mean, they're literally using the races, locations, the voice acting. So it seems like that would be covered under intellectual property. I've also heard Ascension doesn't really make enough money that it would even really be worth the time and effort to Blizzard. I mean, I could be very wrong on all of these speculations, and if you have a better idea or know why it is able to stay afloat, please correct me down in the comments. But from the official fandom wiki and the website, Ascension WoW is apparently legal and legitimate. So for your benefit and knowledge, I took a stab at the game and explored Azeroth in a classless experience. It was pretty fantastic. So there are a few ways that Ascension has really caught my eye, specifically the use of customization. One of the biggest complaints that I've had for World of Warcraft for all the years that I had played retail is the lacking of customization for my characters. And mainly that has become more pronounced as the years have gone on. I remember when retail WoW swapped the old talent choices to the mop tier selections, and I hated it. I hated it so much. I've heard that current WoW has reverted somewhat back to this in recent expansions, either in Dragonflight or War Within, but I really did not like when they switched away from the BC, the Classic, and the Wrath of Lich King talent trees or Cataclysm talent trees into the individual tiers, because it felt like I wasn't able to customize the character the way I wanted to. I was being almost pigeonholed into the best choices. So in Ascension, the servers dictate what type of game mode you are going to play. The three main servers that you can play, it seems like, are Elune, Area 52, and Conquest of Azeroth. Elune is the first server that I played on, and I probably played the most of because it was the wildcard selection. At certain intervals, certain levels, you random roll your abilities and your talents. Sometimes this is an absolute blessing, and other times this is an absolute curse. You can re-roll these choices with certain scrolls that you find out in open world or in drops, but this became kind of like a gambling fix for me, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I would get like the perfect ability that would capitalize on my caster that I was building, and then there was other times I'd get a freaking talent that would only benefit like bear form or something. Come on, man, I started getting mad. Then there is Area 52, which is simply a free pick. As you level, you get more ability points, and you purchase them on whatever skills and abilities that you want to unlock at certain intervals. This is really great if you have a specific build or an idea that you want to work off. I didn't spend too much time here, as I found myself more enjoying the randomness of Wildcard, but this was also a choice that I could play as. The Conquest of Azeroth seemed really exciting too. However, I didn't play it because it seemed that it was like in a public test area, like a free-to-play week or something along this line, to test their brand new take on World of Warcraft, where you choose from several pre-designed and created classes that have their own builds and specs and abilities. Like, it's a really unique idea, but apparently for you to get like the extensive access, you have to purchase a bundle or something from their store, and for it only being a limited time thing and me having to pay money, I just stuck with my go-to free-to-play servers. Now, legitimately, I thought after all my years of playing World of Warcraft, I was really not going to enjoy this game as much as I did. However, I truly loved it, and it was really because of the challenge. So I started my journey in the game mode under a Loon server, which is the wildcard. As I mentioned, all the abilities and talents are randomly rolled for you as you level. Now, you could choose the archetype that you wish to focus on, so strength, agility, intelligence, or spirit. Spirit basically being healer, as I took it. I made my normal Macho Man stash boy and got to work. Without a doubt, the best thing about WoW Ascension is these different trials that you can do. Right from the gate, you can select many different trials that offer unique gameplay affixes, challenges, and more. These not only offer a different spin, but greatly increase the replayability of the leveling process. Many of the challenges have a hardcore game mode tied to them, meaning that you only get one life. Personally, I went with the Iron Man challenge, where I could not interact with other players, I could not use the trading posts or anything. Simply, it was just me getting to max level without dying a single time on my own. They had another interesting one that required you to get to max level on one life, but you had to go through each of the dungeons as you were leveling, soloing all the creatures and all the bosses before you reached certain level thresholds. Like, I really like the challenge. It is really unmatched with these game modes. I love the idea of making the leveling process so much more exciting and interesting without inherently just making mobs hit harder or me weaker. I progressed through most of Elwyn Forest, then Westfall, and then got into Duskwood with my caster boy. As you go through the game, you'll see that it's not just straight carbon copies of Warcraft abilities and talents, however. There are unique talents and abilities that the developers have created and put into the game, which offer massive increases to unique builds and playstyles. For example, I got this ability that after I use my Frostbolt, the next lightning bolt that I use deals more damage and is an instant cast. Then I got a new ability called Energy Blast, which uses modifiers from Lightning Bolt. So basically think of it as Lightning Bolt. From then on, I was rocking mobs that were 4 to 5 levels higher than me, even dealing with elites in only a couple of hits. It really did offer a lot of flexibility, and it was like almost like, okay, I see where this is going. Now we can really shake things up. And if I wanted to, I could always just go back and re-roll the abilities that I didn't want or I didn't need after getting the scrolls that I found in and around the world. Now, it seemed like for the most part, my abilities were fairly balanced across the board. Now, I won't speak on PvP or the end game, as I only really progressed until about like level 25, but it seemed fairly level as I have been able to go through. And there's also a bit of mob scaling up to a certain point. So the creatures in any zone that you go to actually level up right around whatever level you are. Also, a majority of the quests that you complete offer Ascension caches, which offers just really a bunch of loot that is set up specifically for your archetype and your build, and is usually on par of whatever level you are doing gearing, so that was really never an issue. It really felt down to the random rolls of your abilities. On top of this, they have even more customization with mystic elements that can enhance your abilities and playstyles, and you could even purchase more cards for your random roll abilities so that they pop up whenever you level up. It really was quite unique. However, with having your build to be completely free pick, I found it a bit daunting as a casual player, and as I imagine with a degree of difference between casual builds and elite builds, the skill cap could be very high. They also had some pre-built build paths that you could follow along as you were leveling up if you really just didn't want to have it spelled out for you and didn't want to have any guesswork that goes along with it, which honestly was pretty cool. I actually enjoyed this. I mean, there was tons of unique paths, a pre-built skill setup. I mean, it was a nice touch, honestly. And again, I'm sure that you could just go in there, muddle through, and figure it out on your own. I'm absolutely certain of that. However, if you were doing a trial and all that, it might be more suited if you just follow a build path. I've also been told that the endgame can be a bit underwhelming, as player builds can just be wildly overpowered, and as I mentioned, I did not take down Illidan, so I can only speak on what I've seen, but I mean, I could also see why. You could really flesh out, if you're knowledgeable on the game and understand all these different builds and capabilities, you could really make yourself overpowered. I mean, personally, I love this game because it really worked well for me as a casual player, especially the Elune server and the wildcard. I had a really good time just questing and logging in and doing my Iron Man thing, hopefully getting a good ability, progressing a couple of levels, revisiting some of the old zones. It was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it. But I guess I'll ask, how does it compare to retail WoW? I ended my extensive WoW journey from retail at the launch of Shadowlands. I really wasn't a big fan of the direction of the game and the constant requirement to log in, progress daily so that I can maintain my power level, just so that I could raid. As a full-time working dad, I really didn't have all that crazy amount of time outside of raiding 3 nights a week to make sure that my power levels were where they needed to be. So I just had to make a decision if it really was even worth it. Now, I can't necessarily speak for the more recent expansions of Dragonflight or War Within, although I can kind of compare it on a design aspect. I did feel that WoW Ascension was more emphasized on the individual challenge. How hard can a player make a game mode for themselves and the personal goal of beating a trial that is put in front of them immediately? I mean, I really like this approach, as I always ironically like this approach. And ironically, always one of my biggest critiques of retail WoW was that there really wasn't enough solo content for players to do. I did like the Mage Tower for Legion. I did like the Torghast Tower push, as it felt like you could really work toward your own goals and have it fun your own way. However, the pushing of mythic keys and then the raiding, for me, perhaps I just grew tired of it, and it really wasn't for me anymore. I found it mundane and kind of boring. I have heard that the War Within has introduced delves into the expansion that can be soloed or have a small group, which could be pretty cool. I can imagine that. However, I really like the challenges for WoW Ascension, as well as the rewards and kind of like the bragging rights. It really was a cool feature. As for the abilities and the talents, especially with the free pick and wildcard, they kind of pull at two different goals. As Ascension spread out their character customization, you unfortunately lose the class identity. I mean, sure, my caster in Ascension did occasionally get like a melee ability, but I wasn't a Battle Master warrior. WoW has for a very long time done a decent job at keeping class identity, and it's something that I've always thought was fun. I mean, I remember when survival hunters became melee hunters in Legion, and I was all about that, finding the best pole arms and the pets to match, the transmog and everything. I really like the identity of that class. However, the classless system felt more along the lines of an identity of a build versus an archetype. I mean, there is a mage and there is a warlock tanking capability in this game, and that completely threw me for a loop, honestly. I believe that if you have experience with World of Warcraft and then you try Ascension, Ascension could be a lot of fun because you're spinning off of things that are already fairly familiar. If you are new to Ascension, I'm sure that you still will have fun, however, it could be a lot more overwhelming. However, I will say one thing really impacted my joy here in WoW Ascension. As I was progressing through Westfall and Duskwood, I was hit with an absolute body slam of nostalgia. I remember playing this game originally in Burning Crusade and loving every minute of it. The exploration, my character's own kind of like role-playing, the quests, everything. I truly got a taste of that here going through WoW Ascension. Now, the zones and such are not necessarily unique to just Ascension, of course, because you can play classic WoW right now and relive most of it, but it's almost as a veteran going through the thoughts of what if? What if things were random? What if the game were drastically different? What if you put a challenge to yourself? The zones provided the nostalgia, the game modes provided the fresh interest for me. However, it is a game that I could see myself really coming back to time just to push out a new seasonal trial or play a unique game mode or something like that. I mean, it was just really fun for me. I am also keeping my eye on Conquest of Azeroth, and as I didn't play it, I don't really have too much to speak on it, but having pre-designed classes like a Necromancer or a Blood Mage or a Venomancer, I mean, I like the unique takes on it from WoW retail, and it's something that I would certainly love to see more, perhaps, but I don't know if I want to pay for it, but hey, maybe I could be wrong. Overall, WoW Ascension was a lot of fun for this old Warcraft venture. It had a lot of good features, fresh takes, new abilities, and that I found myself, I wanted to keep pushing more and more with my character to see where we could go. Now, this probably won't be for everyone, and there are probably people who are still not interested in anything Blizzard related. However, I would recommend the game if you are a casual player like me who likes the solo challenge and a bit of adventure, we'll say. 110%. Have you tried Ascension? If so, tell me about your experience in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you are interested in hearing about the OG Warhammer MMORPG, Warhammer Online, check this video out here because that game is incredible. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.